I'm really taken with your the Apelles palette and your approach to color. Maybe let's unpack a little bit on that. And is this something that you learned from Odd Nerdrum directly, and then you've taken it and run with it, or were you playing with this before?
Yeah, so I would say I did learn about the Zorn palette in high school, and that's from that mentor that I had. And then I was a lot more colorful after that, let's say. But then going to the Nerdrum school, I learned about the Apelles palette, and that's something that I've fallen in love with. And the Apelles palette is just four colors for anybody who's unaware. It's white, black, yellow, and red. And the idea of using, let's say, this simplified palette is that you're able to achieve a really great harmony throughout the painting, and you're keeping things simple. That's the other part. I know that's like it's pretty obvious, right? Okay, it's a simplified palette, very simple. Okay, but there's a lot of layers to that, I would say, when it comes to learning and when it comes to being able to make a painting. And one of the things about having it so simple is that you're able to get a very intimate connection with that palette. I think it's very easy to understand how things are going to interact when you have such limited variables, right? It's like if you have 16 colors on your palette, then you're going to be kind of all over the place with those colors. If you have only four, you know more or less how everything is going to interact. It's like you're building a relationship with those colors. And I think it's good to be uh, limited in that choice. So when you're working with that palette, everything I think is very easy to figure out. It's like, okay, am I going lighter or darker, warmer or cooler, and then more yellow or more red? I mean, that's all I think about. That's it.
I mean, it certainly does. It certainly does simplify the situation. Do you ever miss blue though? Do you ever miss blue? Maybe some nice bright greens.
I wouldn't say so. I can mix some nice bright greens, and the blue that you can get with the Apelles palette, in my view, it's actually too strong oftentimes. So I know that may sound a little bit funny, but when I've been painting with it, uh, there's been many times where I feel like it's actually too powerful. It overpowers the harmony of the painting. So the colors there is titanium white and Mars black.
Hmm.
And when those are mixed together and then combined with contrast, obviously, it's like I'm using a lot of orange
Hmm.
oftentimes
Hmm.
throughout the mixtures in the light and the dark. That blue is really going to stand out next to the orange because of the contrast.
Hmm. Yeah, it's that complementary opposite, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wow. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, just unpacking this a little bit more, how do you start your painting then? Like what does your first colored ground look like when you're just beginning to build this up? Do you have a approach that you take consistently to this?
Yeah, I do. I wish I could show you. So this is an example that's
Hmm.
on the canvas that I always use, and I've got uh, another one here. Actually, my girlfriend painted a portrait of me,
Hmm.
and then uh, the ground is the same for both those. So it's like a kind of light mid-tone pink ground.
Right.
So I'm painting on linen. It's glued linen, and then the oil ground is something I learned from Nerdrum as well. And the oil ground is quite simple. It's just chalk and oil mixed together with some oil colors. And that's going to build a sort of, uh, I like to think about it as a barrier in a way, because you have sizing, and sizing creates a barrier so that the oil isn't interacting with the fibers of your fabric, right? But the oil ground, in a way, creates an additional barrier so that your paint doesn't seep into the canvas or start to sink in as well.
Mhm.
So if you have that there, the oil ground built up, once you begin to paint, it's going to be really slick.
Mhm.
So that effect I absolutely love. I mean, you can make it look like you're using solvent and you're painting crazy thin just by painting on top of that with, kind of a soft approach.
Mm.
Uh, but that ground I find is just so amazing because the color as well. The color is filled in. So really, all you have to do is start painting some shadows, and you've already got something that's lifelike.
Wow. Wow. That's fascinating. So how then do you go, like one thing I'm curious about is flexibility. Like if you're using chalk and oil and paint, I mean, does the flex of the canvas, does this make it more prone to cracking? Are you more inclined to use a board than a canvas, like, or linen on board or something like that? I mean, because some of these canvases that you're working on, I mean, I'm looking at you stretching one here it looks like an enormous canvas where you're applying this ground to. I mean, what if you had to take that off the stretcher and roll it up? Surely there'd be a little bit of a risk of cracking, no?
I don't think so.
Okay.
So I'll take a step back also. The linen, I think, is very important.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm using a very heavy linen, and that holds up a lot better. So it's like, I mean, that by itself, it's very solid. So if you have experience with cotton canvas, like let's say you start to take it off the stretcher bars, it'll just like crumble. Uh,
Mm.
I mean, it'll start to fold on itself, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The linen doesn't do that. It's
Mm.
it's like, I mean, it's stronger than what you could think about with clothes, even. It's very, very solid. So it will actually hold itself pretty well. And then the beauty of this oil ground mixture is that it's actually very flexible. So
Wow.
the same type of mixture is what you'd use for caulk to seal windows. So
Right.
it's also a historical type of mixture. So it's quite similar to what Rembrandt would have used. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that alone, like uh, kind of Rembrandt, Titian, Caravaggio, this era, I think gives a very positive reputation to linen with glue, and you could paint even just on that. But then
Mm-hmm.
also that additional layer of oil ground, I think
Mm-hmm.
adds to the flexibility. So it's like a whole separate layer. One story I heard is that it's possible to actually remove that entire layer from the fabric. So if
Wow.
the linen starts to have problems, let's say, you could actually just peel it off, and that's, maybe worth it if it's a Rembrandt or a Titian, right? But it's not
Wow.
something you do at home. So